What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the For the Good podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Our mission is to reach the next generation by encouraging you using God's word.
We cover topics like Christian dating. God does not want someone to come to him because of a person.
Finding your godly spouse.
That's how God works in relationships.
Following God's will for your life.
We think that we should be omniscient with God and staying close to God when the world tempts you. Or it can be worshiping the right God in the wrong way. Romans 8:28 says,
And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose.
this podcast is for God's good and to grow his kingdom.
Our prayer is that this ministry provides you with a healthy Christian community that you can be a part of.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the For the Good podcast.
And today we're talking about... Go for it, honey.
Being a Christian in the workplace.
Yes, we are. I never know what to say when you say the intro and then you look at me and I'm like, this isn't
Hold on.
scripted.
That's the best part, though. I just rewatched the beginning of the episode that got posted last week because it's been so long since we filmed it. We filmed it in August, and I was just like reviewing it, making sure that it was like truly edited, which it was. And the beginning of it was so funny because it like went to you, and then you were like, "Yeah." And I just feel like that's like a great part of the episode.
Oh,
like, I
okay.
just think it's so funny because I like do the intro and then you just like don't know what to say.
Yeah, no, I don't. I just get put on the spot and I'm like, yeah, we're here.
If
whatever.
people aren't watching the video and they're just listening, which I think majority of the people are, it probably sounds even worse because you, like, I was listening to it. You sounded so upset. Like,
Yeah,
you sound like you like just didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Guys, I promise I want to be here. I just don't know what to say. I just want to get into it.
Yeah.
I don't want to raffle off a bunch of stuff. I'm just like, let's just talk about the message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want
All
to
right.
start us off?
Yeah, so, well, I think there's two places where we're going with this. One is just going to be like, how do we not fall into sin in the workplace? So with like, I'll just give you a very easy example. Your coworkers go out to the bar and they all get drunk. How do you not get drunk? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit of practical steps through that. And then also we're going to talk...
Not necessarily that kind of sin, though. I know that's like what we defaulted to, but it could literally be like gossip.
Gossip, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just...
Yeah.
That's
That was
an
just an
easy one.
example.
Yeah. And then another place where I really want to go to is that your work that you are doing, whether it's an accounting job or whether it's, real estate or whatever, like you don't have to be in ministry to serve God. And Christians that listen to podcasts or listen to like a lot of sermons or study their Bible like crazy, they just automatically think that they are just supposed to be in ministry just because. And I want to tell you that's not the case at all. We'll get into it in a little bit. But first, let's tackle, I guess, just like holding your Christian values in the workplace to begin with. You go ahead, honey, because I feel like this is more of your sector.
A little bit, yeah. So I did work in an office where there were a lot of times where there was a brewery right next door to our work. Like, we literally walked there. So we would go there if someone was taking a different job, retiring, or, even if it was just like a marketing event, that like we all wanted to hang out and get some like quality time together. We would just go over there and hang out. And I also went to a trade show, which if you are in marketing or anything like that, and you've done like the trade shows where you like travel and you all stay in the same hotel, a lot of times things can get out of hand in the evening because you get the evening to do whatever you want. And if usually they're in big cities, so and the company usually pays for everything while you're gone. So usually people will be like, okay, we're going to go here and get drinks and hang out and, so it was hard at times in those moments to remind myself, like, I'm supposed to be a light in this area and not conform to what they're doing. I am not a like no drinks, like kind of person. Like I enjoy a glass of wine, or, you know, if we hang out with our friends and we're like out to eat, like I would order something. I'm not like completely against everything. Asher and I have talked about this before. But in that time, it like I would go out and I would have a drink with them or two, and I would make sure that I wasn't conforming to what they were doing and trying to, you know, stay on track. I remember this one night, it was the very first trade show I went to. We went to a P&G event because my coworker knew someone that worked for them. Huge company. They literally rented out the House of Blues in downtown Chicago. Mm-hmm. And we got in. It was all you can order, like open bar and open food. Like they were just walking around with food. And it was Train who was performing the first time I went. And private concert. It was so cool. But I remember being in that space, and this was after Jesus, and it took me back to pre-Jesus. Although I was around a bunch of older people, I was like, wait, this reminds me of being in college, and it kind of scared me because I was like, I feel like I shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the music, whatever, but after I like debriefed the night, I was like, that took me back to a place that I never want to be at, you know? So there are some times where you're going to have to be the oddball out where you say, this isn't a good idea. Mm-hmm. And looking back, I knew it wasn't. The following year we went back, it was a different concert, and I had a totally different experience because I reminded myself the entire time I was there that I was going to be my best and that I was just going to be there for the experience and enjoy the music and go home and go to sleep in my hotel room and everything was going to be fine. So there are going to be moments where you're going to have to say no mm-hmm. and be the one that stays back. And if they ask, that's a perfect open door to explain your beliefs, not in a legalistic way, but just like, I could have been like, yeah, this takes me back to college when I was drinking and hanging out with friends all the time, and I just lost control of myself. And I don't want to go back to that place because I'm not that person anymore because Jesus changed my life. Yeah. And that could be an open door to explain that. But I'm not saying it's easy because mm-hmm. it's not. Yeah. It's really hard. Mm-hmm. It's really, really hard, especially when everyone else is going mm-hmm. and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much to add, honey. I'll be honest, because I have since I became a Christian, I haven't been in the workplace.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I think you can tackle this sector. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
So.
And I know that was the first example I gave was drinking, but there were also a lot of times, especially if you work in a department that is predominantly female, which I was. Mm-hmm. There was technically a guy on our team, but he was like an engineer. I don't know why he was considered on the marketing team, but everyone liked to talk about everyone, mm-hmm. especially when on the days where we didn't have that much work to do. It was like, you know, roll my chair over to someone else's desk and be like, hey, or like talk over the cubicle wall because they were short walls, some of them. And, there were times when I found myself in a conversation with my coworkers where it was like going down the trail of gossip. And instead of just being like, you're gossiping about that person, I don't really feel comfortable in the situation because not a lot of us have the courage to do that. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay. If you were a bold person and you were willing to say that, please do, especially if you're close with that person. Yeah. There were a couple instances where I'm just not a confrontational person. So instead of doing that, and because that's not their conviction.
Yeah, it's not their conviction. You know, they may
like
not be Christian.
My coworker didn't have a problem saying that. I had a problem listening to it. If it was another Christian, I definitely would have handled that situation completely different. If my friend comes to me and starts gossiping about another friend, and I know that they're a believer, I will stop them in their tracks. I'm talking about the people that aren't believers.
Yeah, we probably should have said that to begin with.
Yeah. And so a lot of times I would catch her going down that trail, and I would just... my face changed. I turned into a stone wall, And there was no agreement. There was no like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like I understand what you're trying to say. Like I agree. I would just say, oh really?
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's it. Because I'm listening to her opinion.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing. I'm not feeding into it. I'm not going to run and tell the other person. And it's very hard. But you just have to remind yourself if it helps getting a bracelet that literally says like the abbreviation of what would Jesus do, like to remind yourself, like you are supposed to be a light in that place. And gossiping, drinking, participating in sin with other people that aren't believers is not being a light at all.
Yeah.
It's the polar opposite. And it's hard when you're around it all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I think we should dive into now basically how to bring the gospel into the workplace, but not being so weird about it and being a light.
Also following the rules of the company, because a lot of times we got to be careful with what we're talking about and what we're trying to do and say. And we said this last episode, not technically last episode, the episode before that, where we said that your work doesn't have to be about Jesus and you can do your work for him. So what we meant by that was not everyone's going to go into ministry.
Yeah.
And I made a comment and said no one would have anything.
Yeah.
If everyone is in ministry, our world would fall apart.
Yeah.
Like we need people in other areas.
Yeah. First, I want to say your work is a good thing in whatever department you're in. And it's also needed. So I'm going to start in Colossians chapter 3, starting at verse 23. It says, work willingly at whatever you do as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward and that the master you are serving is Christ. But if you do what is wrong, you'll be paid back for the wrong you have done, for God has no favorites. Go ahead.
I don't know where you're going to go with this, but real quick, I just want to make a point and say that aside from like bringing the gospel into work and like sharing your beliefs, I think it's important that we behave like Christ would want us to behave.
Yeah.
So a great example of this was part of the reason why I quit my job is because I was not giving my job 100%. And it was convicting every single day and it was eating me alive. Because I would be so focused on Macy and you that I wasn't able to put my all into work. And I kept telling you when I quit my job, like they're about to get a huge blessing because I want them to hire someone who is passionate about this and can give it their all because my main priority is my daughter. Like the Lord has gifted us with a little girl that we get to raise up to know Jesus. And that was important to me.
Yeah.
Working was not important to me. Now there might be some moms listening to this where they're like, my kids, yes, they're my ministry, but I'm passionate about my work. And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I'm not saying every mom needs to stay home when I say that. I'm just saying for me and my experience, I was convicted and I was living in sin every single day based off of how I was behaving in my job because I was not giving it my all.
Right.
And if I was actually working in ministry for Jesus, I would have been a wreck because I was just not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually pretty much exactly where I was.
Okay,
taking
go
it.
ahead. Yeah.
And one thing that I want to address real quick is because you can take that verse and, spin it however you want to. Paul was not talking to people that were in ministry. He could be, because if you're in ministry, it definitely applies, but he really wasn't. Because if we go up one more verse, it says, slaves, obey your earthly masters. So we can have a whole
That's
other
a whole
episode
nother-
about
yeah.
slavery, but I would like to translate it to
Workers.
Obey your bosses.
Yeah.
In everything that you do. And like you were saying, honey, the characteristics that is going to potentially bring people to Jesus is going to be your work ethic, your integrity, how much you care about others, helping your other coworkers when, they're feeling down, potentially even praying for them in the workplace if you're able to. I know some, workplaces say no to that, but you could help them out in other ways. And this is where I really want to get into is people think that the only place that people are going to receive the gospel is a stage, but why not treat the workplace as your stage? That's the place where God put you in, so treat it as such. And I am just now kind of coming out of my shell with my work and my YouTube because sometimes I give it my all, then sometimes I don't, and then sometimes I give like ministry my all, then sometimes I don't. But I've had a really, really just big conviction recently that my content and what I'm posting and like just like talking about Jesus and talking about scripture and talking about the gospel, as much as people love the content, that's just not that. I'm not trying to talk to Christians, and people that play games aren't believers. So it's weird for me to talk about just Christian content, but I'm kind of getting off topic. But anywho, I wasn't putting my all into it. And I go to a verse like this, and it's like, oh, wait a second. I'm not giving it my all because I think I'm in ministry, but I should be giving it my all regardless if I'm in ministry or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really makes sense, but
Yeah.
I was confused on why I wasn't fulfilled. And this is another thing as well, is some people are like, well, I'm not fulfilled because I'm not serving God. And it's like, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And I want to challenge you and say, are you actually putting your all into this work that you're doing? Spreadsheets are probably really boring. I couldn't imagine, But are you actually putting your all in those spreadsheets, or are you just getting by? Because again, going back on my YouTube thing, I was really lazy with my YouTube work. And now I'm putting more of my effort and more of my time into it, learning and growing from it. And it's starting to fulfill me more because, God's put me in this space and I don't want to let him down by being lazy. And a lot of times with our 9-to-5 jobs and just jobs in general, we're very lazy. We're just trying to collect a paycheck and get on by. But
doing the bare minimum, clocking in, clocking out.
Yep. That's kind of what you were explaining.
Yeah, it can definitely be hard to fall into that trap of like just doing what you need to be done. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I also want to, were you done?
I was just going to finish off my little segment by saying, God doesn't only just care about the work about him. He cares about all work. I mean, you can take this all the way back to Genesis chapter 2 when God gave Adam work. The work wasn't about God at all.
Yeah.
It's about a garden.
Yeah.
He cares about all work. He cares about the spreadsheets. He cares about the YouTube work you do. He cares about, if you're a dog walker, he cares about all of that stuff. Okay, go ahead, honey.
Yeah. No, that was really good. Something that helped me when I had my job, because I was like, I'm literally marketing for Food Lockers. Like, how is this making an impact? And I do believe that I'm called to something else. So that's kind of why I was feeling that. But in that moment, before we met, I was trying my best to just really like dive into work and give it my all. So when I started with the company, I did a lot and I took on extra tasks, and I was like, I still don't feel like I'm making a difference, but I knew that I had to work to provide for myself. And that was my job. And that job was a gift from the Lord. That I told you that story when I got that job. It was crazy how it happened. But something that I did to help me on the day-to-day, feeling like I was actually like getting fulfilled, is I would put in my AirPod just one so that I could hear if someone else came up to me, and I would listen to worship music or listen to a podcast or listen to a sermon, while I was doing my work because I was editing a website. I was making like certain graphics and stuff. And I was like, let me just fill my mind with something else. So if you're that person where you're like, my job's definitely not making a difference, I don't talk to anyone. Maybe you're in like finance. And like you said, you're looking at spreadsheets all day and just numbers. And there's just a lot going on. Maybe do that. Maybe listen to something, maybe pull something up on a separate screen of like a podcast or a sermon from someone that you like to listen to. There's so much stuff online. It is insane. Like there are, after COVID, I think every single church to ever exist has a YouTube channel now where they stream their sermons. So maybe try that. I think that would help a little bit. Just making sure that you're still getting fed, even though you don't feel like you're making a kingdom impact into what you're doing.
Yeah. The next place I want to take this is Matthew chapter 5, starting at verse, or actually I can take it at verse 14. We can start there. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp that puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. This is the verse I want to hone in on. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. And I know we kind of talked about this a couple minutes ago, but I want to make it a really big point that your characteristics are what is going to draw people in. Because if you really think about it, these people in the workplace, they may be going to church. Maybe. I would argue most people don't go to church. I would argue most people are not Christian in America. But your good characteristics in the workplace, far more important than the sermons on Sunday.
Yeah.
It like outweighs how much more important your characteristic is inside the workplace compared to the sermon on a Sunday. Because think about it. You may have 150 people that come to church on a Sunday. And how many of those people do you think are non-believers? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. Were you looking for an answer?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was just saying, I would argue a lot of them are, I didn't go to church when I wasn't a believer, or I was starting to get into it, right? And I would argue most people that go to church are believers. Most people do not get fed the gospel in church. That is not how it works.
Unless you're like, hey, come to church with me this Sunday, and then they hear it for the first time.
Can it happen?
Sure.
It can definitely happen. But the people that are, in my community, your story, people that I'm very close with, people get fed the gospel either through their parents, through the workplace, through on the street, in jail. Everywhere. But most things or most stories that I hear are not, on a Sunday, there it is. It happened. Nope, I usually don't hear that. And so think about how many people can get fed the gospel if your characteristics change in the workplace, because again, they're probably not going to church. Again, characteristics are very important. So I wrote down some practical steps, because now you may be thinking, what characteristics are you talking about? Yeah, sure, you can say the fruit of the Spirit, sure, but I want to make it a little bit more practical. So here are 6 practical steps. Work with God, not just for Him. Number 2, pursue excellence. Number 3, act with integrity. Number 4, serve others. Number 5, see your work as ministry. Number 6, rest intentionally. Rest intentionally is very, very big, whether it's on the weekend or whether it's a Thursday or whatever. Take time to not look at work at all, so your battery's charged to serve your coworkers, 4 or 5 days a week, however much you work.
It was really good.
Go ahead, honey.
Really, really good. I also want to make a point about like how you behave around your coworkers. So something that really stuck with me when I had my job, I wore a cross necklace very often. Okay. But I feel like a lot of people do.
Yes. A lot of people do.
It's now a jewelry accessory.
Yeah, it is.
Which is really sad. That's a whole other topic. But anyways, I was a believer. I was a follower. like fully devoted followers, and I remember one time my boss made a comment about my beliefs, and it wasn't in a bad way by any means. She just noticed. And I was like, I've never made a comment saying I'm a Christian, or like, I mean, I guess she kind of picked it up because I asked for a little bit on Tuesdays to work from home in the afternoon so I could go to a young adult group because I didn't have time to drive all the way home, let Bella out, eat, and then go to the young adult group because it was like right after work. She would never have made it the whole day without going to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
So at lunch, I would drive home and then I would work from home because I was hybrid anyway. So I would just work from home on Tuesday to go. So I guess maybe that was a clue as well. But she noticed that I was a believer. So I just want to I just want to give you guys a goal, I guess, to make it so apparent that you are a believer through the way that you behave, the way that you speak, the way that you do your work, openly saying, like, I had like floating holidays. If you have floating holidays, like taking Good Friday off, I did that a couple times. Like, just making it very apparent. Like, I literally put in when I used my float holiday, I said, Good Friday. Like, I'm taking this off for a reason. Or if you're Catholic and you go to Ash Wednesday services, like taking that day off as a day of rest, just so that you can weigh in on the importance of it. Like, whatever it may be, make it a goal that you want your coworkers to know your beliefs without verbatim telling them, I am a Christian. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they will pick up on it,
the
way that you behave. And that's a great way for them to ask you questions. If someone's talking about something that they're struggling with, because I don't know about your guys' coworkers, but my coworkers were like open books. I was open books with them. They were open books with me. Like, we knew what was going on in each other's lives. And you can just use that as an outlet and be like, hey, I used to struggle with that too. This is what got me through it, less preachy. I don't exactly know what you're allowed to say in the workplace. But that could be a good way as well.
Okay. So the last thing that I want to say real quick, you kind of already touched base on it, but a lot of people think that their jobs serve no purpose whatsoever. Kind of already talked about it a little bit, but I want to go a little bit further. I'm going to start in Ephesians chapter 2, starting at verse 10. It says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago." And when you become a Christian, you hear all the stories. Well, my pastor moved across the freaking world. Well, this guy did this. This guy started this. This guy did this. Homie, your purpose on this earth does not have to be dramatic. It does not have to be dramatic at all. And also, one thing that I will say is, if you're questioning your purpose, if you're questioning what you're doing is correct, you're completely normal. I question what I am doing there isn't a day that hasn't gone by since I've been a Christian where I'm like, I don't know if this is it.
Yeah.
And this is, again, a whole nother topic where Christians are like, oh, you need to know, you got to follow the Spirit and God's going to come down from heaven. And no, he's not. Maybe he didn't for me. And I question this every single day. But one thing that I will say is God has put you in the exact place you're in right now for a purpose. And use what he has given you to love him and to love others. I think I had something written in my notes that I wanted to say real quick. Oh, yes. So one thing that I wanted to say is the life that is created is for God's purpose. So, and the good works that you're doing in the workplace is literally for God's purpose. Again, like I said, not all things that you are doing is going to be about God. It's going to be for him. So don't think, oh man, I didn't spread John 3:16 to my coworkers today. Who cares? Seriously, like, They may not receive John 3:16. You know what they may receive? They may receive your integrity and hard work ethic, though. Some people don't receive the gospel the same way you did. That's one thing that I want to make very, very apparent. The gospel is extremely powerful, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people will show or will see your characteristics way more than a Bible verse. They don't believe this book is true, ladies and gentlemen. They don't believe this book is true. So how are we going to make them believe this book is true? Through our fruit and through our characteristics.
That was really good.
I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. I just had a few bullet points that I forgot to read. We kind of already said all of these, but that's fine. Make Christianity attractive by the way you present yourself and behave in the workplace. Hold tight to your values and do not let others influence you. And then just ask yourself, are you being faithful with the job God has gifted you with? Because especially our generation, sometimes it is way easier to clock in and do something else while you're getting paid. Personal opinion, I don't think that any job requires 40 hours a week. We talk about that all the time. So yeah, there might be a few hours in your workday where you're like downtime, don't really know what to do. Not if you're a physical, not if your job is physical, right? So like I'm not talking to construction workers who like literally work from the second they get to the job site until they leave. That's a little bit different. I'm really talking about like some desk jobs, or even in retail. I used to study for my nursing classes when I was working in retail. Like I would bring my binder out and I would just like flip through stuff. And it's like, was there anything to do on the floor? I worked at a jewelry store. There was nothing to clean up. We didn't have clothes everywhere. But I definitely could have tried to do something productive, while I was there. So just don't take advantage of your job. And yeah, that's all we got for you.
Okay.
I think that this was a pretty short topic. So
Yeah, we will see y'all next Wednesday on the tripod.